have been working through the different days of the Passion of Jesus Christ. We are now, in the way that the videos have been developed, looking at what happens after the high priestly prayer. Jesus now goes forth into Gethsemane, and he suffers long in agony. And I would like to pick up at that point. It looks like he was in a garden, open garden possibly, between the brook Kedron and the roof of the Mount of Olives, or the foot of the Mount of Olives. This is according to Robertson on page 201 of his work, The Harmony of the Gospels, and which has really helped me quite a bit. It was what we used in seminary when I had The Life of Christ by Dr. Pentecost, and I'm using it now because it summarizes in a very wonderful way the harmony of all of the Gospels. So now it's late Thursday night. Jesus has already met with the disciples. There's already the end of the discourse, upper room discourse. And as we think about what has happened to set the stage for this, we know that Judas has said that he would betray Jesus. He went to the high priest and the religious leaders for 30 pieces of silver. And so we're now looking at what will be happening prior to the arrest of those that are coming to arrest Jesus and take him to trial. So we pick it up when Jesus now is in the garden praying and going through great agony. So I'm reading again. I've been working through Matthew, trying to follow the development of Matthew's gospel in relationship to this. And so we're going to pick it up then in Matthew chapter 26, beginning at verse 36 and following. Then Jesus came with them to a place called Gethsemane and said to the disciples, "Sit here while I go and pray over there." And he took with him Peter and the two sons of Zebedee, and he began to be sorrowful and deeply distressed. Then he said to them, "My soul is exceedingly sorrowful, even to death. Stay here and watch for me." So he goes to pray to the Father, and notice a few of the disciples, the two sons of Zebedee and Peter, he takes with him, and he asks them to stay there while he moves on to address the Father. He mentions how his soul was exceedingly sorrowful, even to death. He went a little further and fell on his face and prayed, saying, "O my Father, if it is possible for this cup to pass from me, let it happen. Nevertheless, not what I will, but what you will." In verse 39 and then 40 and following. Then he came, notice how Jesus is saying, "Lord, if there could be any other way for this cup to pass from me, let it happen." The cup is used in biblical teaching to represent one's destiny or what is to happen. And so as he prays that, he says, Lord, Father, not my will, but yours be done. Then he came to the disciples and found them asleep and said to Peter, there are three prayers he will make. What? Could you not watch with me for 1 hour? Watch and pray, lest you enter into temptation. The spirit indeed is willing, but the flesh is weak. So he went away a second time and prayed, saying, O my Father, if this cup cannot pass away from me, I drink it, your will be done. So again, he tells the Father, your will be done. I'm willing to drink this cup. And he came and found them asleep again, for their eyes were heavy. It's interesting how that the disciples are sleeping while Jesus is in agony. I think often it's easy for the church to sleep and not be aware of the agony that it cost Christ to go to the cross for our sins. But we move on. So he left them, went away again, and prayed a third time, saying the same words. Then he came to his disciples and said to them, are you still sleeping and resting? Behold, the hour is at hand, and the Son of Man is being betrayed into the hand of sinners. Rise, let us be going. See, he who betrays me is at hand. It is interesting that when we look at the different gospel accounts that I read from Matthew, we have the Gospel of Luke, where it speaks of Jesus. And notice it says in verse 44, as he's praying, and he was in agony, he prayed more earnestly. And it says his sweat became, as it were, great drops of blood falling down upon the ground. And when he arose up from prayer, he then came to his disciples. And so what I notice here is that the New Testament Gospels talk about the agony of Jesus' prayer and what he's going through. And I remember in seminary, when I had the life of Christ, the professor said, we can't even imagine the agony that Jesus was going through. He's not only speaking of physical death, the agony of that, but think about it, he will be separated from his Father when he is bearing our sins and the sins of the world on himself on the cross. He knows that he would cry out, my God, why have you abandoned me? And I believe that we can never comprehend the depth of that the second person of the Trinity is willing to carry out a covenantal agreement between he and the Father that was made in eternity past and would involve the separation from his Father during that time that he is bearing our sins. If we could put it this way, he suffered an eternal punishment for us and for our sins in those hours upon the cross. And I think we today need to think about the fact that it cost him all of that because he loved us. We're told, for God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten Son, that whosoever believes in him should not perish, but have everlasting life. And I think what behooves us is to look at Jesus, who was willing to say, not my will, but yours be done, Father, and was willing to go to the cross on our behalf, on my behalf, on your behalf. And that, when we think about that, I'm reminded of the great hymn, "When I survey the wondrous cross on which the Prince of Glory died, my richest gain I count but loss, and pour contempt on all my pride. Were the whole realm of nature mine, that were a present far too small. Love so amazing, so divine, demands my life, my soul, my all." May we take that hymn to ourselves and look at what Christ went through on our behalf.